Thank you, everyone. Uh, First of all, I would like to say thank you to sir for inviting me. क्योंकि since 2019 I am here in IIT Roorkee और जब भी मैं हरिद्वार जाता रहता हूँ अक्सर I cross Patanjali but never get chance. I was always wondering कि how can I come here and interact क्योंकि एक उम्दा संस्थान है and I can interact and I do some research which requires some interdisciplinary approach. Yoga recently has attracted many people, many of us, not because that हम Indians की एक पहचान बन गया है, but because it has a therapeutic intervention in many mental health. The kind of research which I do requires yoga. It can facilitate those parts of the brain which can not only be helpful but also it can guide you in many ways. Brain, I just before I start my presentation, I would like to share that I come from a science background. Earlier, I never understood how important it is to talk about mental health, but country like India, जहाँ पे we don't need basic understanding of human mind, घर में बचपन से ही हमें सिखाया जाता है बहुत सी चीज़ें, and the way our ancient scriptures are written, वो एक अपने आप में एक थेरेपी है. The field of psychoanalysis came very late, but people have been addressing these issues long back. और कुछ किताबें जो हमारे समाज में हैं जैसे गीता है, it is not considered as a book related to Hinduism, but it is always seen as a book which can deal and teach you many things related with day-to-day activities. जैसे the way Krishna was teaching Arjun कि how you should control your senses, how you should overcome your challenges. तो वो सारी बातें जो हम आज की डेट पे स्टडी करते हैं वो CBT ही समझी जा सकती है, कॉग्निटिव बिहेवियरल थेरेपी, हाउ वी गोइंग टू दैट basic level in understanding the sensory system when thousands and thousands of stimuli are coming to us and we are so selective किस stimuli को select करें किसको हम ना select करें. So मेरी research over the years, हम तो बहुत ही छोटी research कर रहे हैं, हमने बहुत बड़ा काम नहीं किया है, but my research is entirely dependent on memory. और memory में भी हम कई चीज़ों पे ध्यान जो देते हैं वो है आपका पैथोलॉजिकल मेमोरी. पीपल हु आर सफरिंग विद ट्रॉमा, बहुत से लोगों को डर होता है किसी अंधेरे से, बहुत लोगों को डर होता है ऊंचाई से, बहुत से लोगों को डर होता है भीड़ भाड़ से, बहुत से लोगों को डर होता है कि पब्लिक में स्पीक कैसे करें. तो उन चीज़ों को हम थोड़ा सा बेसिक लेवल पे लैब में स्टडी करते हैं एंड वी यूज सेवरल टूल्स. उसमें से एक टूल जो अभी हमने रिसेंटली एड्रेस करना शुरू किया है पैनिक डिसऑर्डर में, दैट इज़ योगा. एंड विद इन योगा कपाल भारती और प्राणायाम जैसे मेथड हमने प्रपोज किए हैं एंड वी विल बी वेरी सून स्टार्टिंग सच रिसर्च ऑल्सो इन आवर लैब. एंड द बेसिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग अबाउट ऑल दीज योगा और asanas are how to control your physiology, because one is mind and another is body. So either you control your mind, but if it is very challenging for you to control mind, then how can we control body to control mind? So it could be addressed simultaneously. तो मैंने सोचा कि because this is a class of participants from psychology and different discipline, I should come up with a slide where we can understand with common example कि क्या हो सकता है. तो अगर आप देखें तो दो लोग हैं, two people are there and they just bump into each other's car. Now the persons, if you see their behavior, is slightly different. One may appear to be cool, calm, talking over phone. The other person is just trying to take pictures and all. Both of them have a different behavioral responses towards the same event or situation. और यही होता है जनरली डे टू डे एक्टिविटी में, कोई एक स्टिमुली होता है एंड डिफरेंट पीपल रिस्पॉन्ड डिफरेंटली. Psychology has लास्ट 200 ईयर्स, अब मुझे तो लगता है बेसिक अंडरस्टैंडिंग साइकोलॉजी की हम शुरू कर रहे थे, एंड देन सर ने पूरा एक्सप्लेन कर दिया व्हेन इट स्टार्टेड एंड एवरीथिंग, एंड आई हैव सम स्लाइड्स। तो साइकोलॉजी इसी चीज़ को समझने की कोशिश करता है, व्हाई पीपल रिस्पॉन्ड डिफरेंटली and process information differently towards same situation or condition or context. Context is same, but two people are behaving differently. Why can't we control or overcome our excessive emotional response or physiological response? When we get trapped into anger, then it is very difficult for us to get out of it. When we are trapped into conflict, then it is very difficult for us to get out of it. Why is that we are so much driven towards our behavior? Some behaviors are visible, some behaviors are not visible. The way we perceive behavior, our behavior, is very different the way others are perceiving our behavior. So perception of behavior is very, very different. इसी में अगर कहें, and we do not know when the situation occurs, we do not know what is the state of the person. So psychology tries to address the state. दो लोग जो आपस में खड़े हैं, उनमें से कोई शांत होता है, कोई लड़ता रहता है, कोई दोनों ही शांत रहते हैं या दोनों ही लड़ रहे हैं. So what kind of mental state they are in? क्या ऐसा है कि that both persons are having a trait of high anxiety level? दोनों ही के पास trait जो हैं, उनका स्वभाव जो है वो हाई एंजाइटी का है. थोड़ी सी सिचुएशन हो गई, पानी गिर गया शर्ट पे, तो एंजाइटी आ गई. और do they have a trait of low anxiety level? So most of our understanding, अगर एक बंद कमरे में रिसर्च हम जैसे करते हैं, कंट्रोल्ड एक्सपेरिमेंट हम करते हैं, most of our findings come from western side. इंडिया से बहुत ही लिमिटेड रिसर्च है, and that is why we are bringing research towards global south. इस तरफ हम लाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, जिससे कि हम समझ सके कि हमारे लोग अलग हैं, हमारा कल्चर अलग है, तो हमारा रिस्पॉन्ड भी स्टिमुली के प्रति अलग होगा. हम इतने हिंसक नहीं हैं, तो जैसे वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड है, तो हमारे लिए एक चक्कू भी बहुत बड़ा स्टिमुली है, पर वहाँ पे हो सकता है नाइफ इज ओनली अ नाइफ. It is very simple thing. So how these two stimuli are different? Second thing, when these two people are interacting with each other, तो हमें ये नहीं पता कि दोनों के पास गाड़ी क्या है. सिचुएशन ये भी हो सकती है, एक ने नई गाड़ी खरीदी है और एक अपने फादर की गाड़ी लेके आया है for the first time on the road, और दोनों ही bump each other, and then both are scared कि one is worrying about the insurance, other is worrying about the father. So we don't know the history. So during this lecture, we will try to understand what are the basic causes for such behavioral responses, how much we have evolved, how much the science has evolved over the years. Evolution is part of any science and any human being, or I would say any species. Any species which cannot evolve then goes to extinction. This is the fact. So we are also on the journey of evolution, and constantly we are evolving, and you might have experienced that जैसे हमारे पूर्वज रहते थे, we are not living that way. अगर हम साइकोलॉजी की बात करें, रास्ते में ही हम आ रहे थे तो कपिल जी से बात होने लगी, then he was saying that yoga is spiritual science and spirituality. So psychology is not very much different from it, because psychology is coming from a Greek word, और उसमें भी दो शब्द हैं जो आप समझ सकते हैं. तो उसमें स्पिरिचुअल और सोल की बात होती है, और दूसरी होती है स्टडी और रिसर्च. तो जब साइकोलॉजी की हम बात करते हैं तो वो दो शब्दों से बना हुआ है, स्पिरिचुअलिटी एंड सोल एंड रिसर्च. How much do we understand? Now we are talking about Greek period. So that time people didn't had that much understanding about many cultures. बहुत limited थे. आज की डेट पे if I have to travel to America, I can take a flight and then within 8 to 12 hours I will be in America and I can exchange the knowledge. और internet है, I can exchange the knowledge. The same talk I can give from IIT Roorkee also. बट यहाँ मेरे प्रेजेंस होने में और ऑनलाइन देने में बहुत अंतर हो जाता है, बिकॉज देयर इज अ बिहेवियरल चेंज, बिहेवियरल रिस्पॉन्स, डायरेक्ट कनेक्ट, कम्युनिकेशन, एंड दैट इज व्हाट साइकोलॉजी टॉक्स अबाउट इन डिटेल वे. सो इफ वी सी साइकोलॉजी, जो सिंबल है, कॉमन सिंबल है जो बहुत ही कॉमन है, हम देख सकते हैं. उसके आगे अगर हम बढ़ें तो हम देख सकते हैं डेफिनेशन जो है साइकोलॉजी की, विलियम जेम्स ने जो दी थी, शुरू में बात हो रही थी इसी की कि पहली लैब जो शुरू हुई अमेरिका में, फर्स्ट लैब एस्टैब्लिश्ड, सेवरल रिसर्चर्स कंट्रीब्यूटेड इन मेनी वेज. मेन रिसर्च विलियम वुंड ने की थी, जो कि अभी हम देखेंगे, जिन्होंने प्रपोज किया था स्ट्रक्चरलिज्म. क्यों किया था उसके बारे में समझेंगे. बट द अदर रिसर्चर्स, विलियम जेम्स gave this definition. When he was talking about psychology, he mentioned that it's a science of mental life, which is brain, both of its phenomena and their conditions. उसके process क्या है, वो कैसी mechanism करता है और वो respond करता है. Greek, on the other hand, Greek philosophers, because psychology or any science which is existing today, all these sciences have evolved from philosophy. फिलॉसफी से ही निकली है. और फिलोसफिकल बैकग्राउंड अगर हम इंडिया का देखें तो बहुत ही रिच है, बहुत ज़्यादा रिच है. वी हैव रीच टू इवन कोर टू अंडरस्टैंड. एंड आई थिंक मोस्ट ऑफ यू नो दैट एटॉमिक बॉम्ब हो या न्यूक्लियर बॉम्ब हो, फिजन रिएक्शन हो, फ्यूजन रिएक्शन हो, everything people have referred back to some ancient scriptures which come from our country. Sanskrit से ही है. So it's like an atomic bomb. Many people have acknowledged that we got an understanding through reading Gita, that they were talking about Brahmastra and all those things. तो हमने शुरू में ही many things we have achieved, what body is doing, what mind is doing. And then to higher level of cognition, which we talk about, जो supreme mind की बात हम करते हैं, that is kundalini जब जागृत होती है, that is the state of unconsciousness. Not many people reach that, and that is the modern psychology which is talking about that how conscious and unconscious mind is interacting and dealing. Right now we are conscious, but when we are conscious state, we are not fully using our brain. तो बहुत सी चीज़ें हम इग्नोर कर देते हैं, बहुत सी चीज़ें हम एब्जॉर्ब करते हैं. तो बाद में डेफिनेशन इमर्ज आउट हुई साइकोलॉजी की 1930s एंड 50s कि द साइंस ऑफ ह्यूमन एंड एनिमल बिहेवियर. अब ह्यूमन की बिहेवियर की तो बात थी, बट देन दे ऑब्जर्व दैट देयर आर सर्टेन एनिमल्स ऑल्सो विद whom we are interacting. We are more comfortable in interacting with animals like cow हैं, dog हैं, cat हैं. So what kind of behavior they are having, so that is one aspect. Then further the definition goes like it includes the application of this science to human problems. So आप इसमें दो हिस्से दे सकते हैं. एक है कि साइंस ऑफ ह्यूमन बिहेवियर. सो क्या ह्यूमन बिहेवियर इज अ साइंस? फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन comes to our mind, but we don't see psychology as a science. So why we are saying that the science of human behavior? Second thing, what problems we are talking about, and the application in human problems. कौन सी problems की हम बात कर रहे हैं? So problem could be any problem: how to talk, how to interact, how to make friends, how to drive on road, how to cook food. All these things are small human behavior. तो why it is a science? क्योंकि we observe behavior. Systematic observation एक होता है जिसको हम कहते हैं कि we are observing behavior. कौन कैसे बैठता है, कौन कैसे लेक्चर देता है, कौन कैसे हाथ हिलाता है, कौन कैसे बात करता है, शब्दों का चयन कैसे कौन करता है, और उनके उसी के आधार पे we make friends and we make enemies. We make more enemies than friends, unfortunately. But do we really understand when we are saying that enemies? There is no enemy. The only thing is that it is very difficult for us to understand behavior at that basic level. Some behaviors which is very difficult for us to understand, we tend to avoid. Some observations which we have problem, we tend to avoid. And psychology, we will see that several disciplines have emerged out. कारण ये है कि जो behavior है, जैसा भी behavior है लोगों का, उसको कैसे हम study करें separately, because each discipline of science come up with different perspective altogether. तो अगर हम आगे बढ़ें तो हम देख सकते हैं, जैसे हम बता रहे थे कि इट्स स्टडी ऑफ ह्यूमन एनिमल बिहेवियर. तो ज़्यादातर फाइंडिंग आज की डेट पे भी 2020 की बात करें, मोस्ट ऑफ आवर फाइंडिंग्स आर कमिंग आउट फ्रॉम एनिमल रिसर्च. जैसे किसी ने पिजन का इस्तेमाल किया, किसी ने कैट का इस्तेमाल किया, पेवलॉव ने डॉग का इस्तेमाल किया. Ivan Pavlov is very popular in the field of psychology because he gave the theory of learning. But Ivan Pavlov was not a psychologist. Ivan Pavlov was a biochemist. He was investigating how the digestive system works. And the animal which is responsible to investigate was the dog. But what he observed, that when he was putting the dog in his lab, after 1 or 2 days later, whenever he was approaching towards the dog, not to give food, but dog was salivating. There was a saliva. जैसे कि ये हो सकता है कि हमारे हम बिस्तर में लेटे हुए हैं और हमारे पिताजी कमरे में आए, तो हम उठ खड़े होते हैं, या कोई हमसे बड़ा आए तो हम सबसे पहले उठ के, ऑटोमेटिक रिस्पॉन्स है, पैर छू लेते हैं. तो दिस ऑटोमेटिक रिस्पॉन्स वी हैव डेवलप्ड ओवर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. तो ये बाय डिफॉल्ट हो जाता है. माता पिता होते हैं, मंदिर में जाते हैं, सर झुक जाता है. दीज थिंग्स वी हैव लर्न. सो द सेम थिंग व्हाट दे ऑब्जर्व कि डॉग इज सेलिवेटिंग नॉट ओनली व्हेन द रिसर्चर इज कमिंग इनसाइड द रूम, डॉग इज सेलिवेटिंग व्हेन द बोल इज देयर, dog is salivating when certain smell of the food is there. So then he understood that animal has learned something with context, animal has learned something through stimuli. Now इस रूम का वातावरण ऐसा है कि ये लेक्चर रूम है. So everybody who comes here knows that we are going to get a lecture delivered. Some people are conditioned or learned that इस रूम में आएंगे तो मुझे सोना पड़ेगा. You know, the lectures sometimes go boring, so we have to sleep. It becomes, it's like that. So how much actively we are involved, how much passively we are involved, all these are learning. तो साइंस की जब हम बात करें तो साइंस क्यों आ जाता है? क्योंकि हम सिस्टमैटिकली ऑब्जर्व कर रहे हैं, वी आर काउंटिंग, एंड दैट इज व्हाट वी डू. When first time we are meeting anybody, we try to observe their behavior consciously or unconsciously. Consciously only few individuals can do. Unconsciously क्योंकि कभी बहुत साल पहले जब बचपन में थे तो माता पिता ने कहा कि स्ट्रेंजर्स से दूर रहो, अज्ञात इंसानों से थोड़ा लिमिटेड बात करो, पहली बार बात करने पे पूरा तुरंत भरोसा मत करो, थोड़ा थम के बात करो. तो वो दैट काइंड ऑफ लर्निंग इज ऑलवेज देयर इन आवर ब्रेन which slowly develops. अब जब हम साइकोलॉजी की बात करते हैं then we also study कि एक क्लोज एनवायरनमेंट में कितनी मानव स्वभाव की बातों को हम समझ सकते हैं. That is very difficult for us to understand. But psychology is there since the day child is born till the day he dies. ये है वास्तविकता. और उसको हम स्टडी करते हैं एल्डरली रिसर्च में, एडोलसेंट रिसर्च में, यंग एडल्ट में. और अगर आप ये ट्रैक देखें तो शुरुआत कहाँ से हुई मैं उसकी बात करूँगा. आई विल नॉट टॉक अबाउट द एंशिएंट लिटरेचर विच वी हैड वेरी रिच लिटरेचर एंड आई हैव वेरी लिमिटेड नॉलेज. तो साइकोलॉजी की अगर हम बात करें तो 1820 अराउंड सम रिसर्चर्स वर वेरी मच इंटरेस्टेड कि हम याद कैसे करते हैं चीज़ों को. एंड अगर हम किसी चीज़ों को याद करते हैं, जैसे आज की डेट पे टेलीफोन नंबर याद करना हमारे लिए बहुत आसान है. बट कुछ साल पहले अगर देखें, 30 साल पहले जब मोबाइल फ़ोन इंडिया में पहली बार आया या लैंडलाइन आया, तब बहुत कठिन होता था हमारे लिए नंबर याद करना. आज की डेट पे आसान है क्योंकि हम वी ब्रेक द नंबर्स इनटू चंक्स, 4 में ब्रेक करके कर लेते हैं, आसानी होती है. तो 1820 से लेके 2022 तक की रिसर्च में 200 साल का जो सफ़र हमने तय किया, साइकोलॉजी ने बहुत से टर्न्स देखे हैं और बहुत evolution आया है. And the last slide I will end with that actually, the future of psychology where it is lying. तो इसमें मैंने 3 विभाजन किए because I felt that it is important to see that the approximately 100 years का gap है. जब हमने शुरू किया तो कुछ स्कूल ऑफ थॉट, ओल्ड स्कूल ऑफ थॉट थे, और ओल्ड स्कूल ऑफ थॉट जो था वो सबसे पहले आया आपका स्ट्रक्चरलिज्म. तो ओल्ड स्कूल ऑफ थॉट की जब हम बात करें, पुराने स्कूल वाले जो विचार थे, तो ये दीज आर द साइंटिस्ट विच प्रपोज्ड दैट साइकोलॉजी है क्या और व्हाई इट इज इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर अस टू स्टडी. तो पहले तो केवल ये जिज्ञासा थी कि शरीर है और दिमाग है और हाउ दीज टू आर इंडिपेंडेंट बॉडीज. तब कुछ लोगों ने कहा ब्रेन इज सुपीरियर, कुछ लोगों ने कहा कि शरीर बॉडी इज सुपीरियर, कुछ लोगों ने कहा बोथ आर सुपीरियर एंड दे इंटरैक्ट, कुछ लोगों ने कहा कि ब्रेन जो है हमारा वो भगवान से जुड़ा हुआ है. सो वॉट एवर नॉलेज, अवेयरनेस, एक्सपीरियंस विच आई एम हैविंग इज आई एम हैविंग बिकॉज ऑफ गॉड. कुछ लोगों ने कहा जो शरीर है हमारा it is materialistic, and after certain years it will die. और but there is some entity, metaphysical entity, जिसका कोई physical structure नहीं है, वो है soul which lives, and that is why they started to talk about. But अगर period देखें 1832 to 1920, that time the science was emerging out, different sciences were emerging out. उस वक्त chemistry was coming out, chemistry, physics, mathematics. तो chemistry में ये था कि how atoms are there, how atomic number is important, how nucleus is formed. तो विलियम वुंड का मानना था कि can we come up with atomic number and atomic weight similarly, like आप लोगों ने periodic table देखी होगी 10th standard में जब हमने पढ़ा था, periodic table थी जिसमें different elements जो हैं exist करते हैं, सोडियम, पोटेशियम, कैल्शियम, उनको प्लेस किया. तो विलियम वुंड का मानना था कि can we study human emotions, can we understand human behavior to that basic level and we put them in periodic table. तो हम उनको बता सकें कि ये जो इंसान जब खुश होता है तो उसका ये एटॉमिक नंबर है और ये एटॉमिक वेट है, which is little unrealistic, but you can understand the imagination of human mind. ये imagination human mind की है कि behavior को उस basic level पे break करने की कोशिश थी. पर then William James, another researcher, was there during that same period. He was saying that human behavior की जो हम बात कर रहे हैं वो functions की बात हम कर रहे हैं, functions की बात कर रहे हैं कि perception की बात कर रहे हैं. Perception, how are you seeing the world? The way I see the world is very different the way Guruji sees the world or Sir sees the world. They have different perception altogether. I may be corrupt, I may be biased towards my own thought, I may be very selective towards my thought, and the way I am biased, I see the world. तो मेरे लिए शायद ट्रस्ट करना, विश्वास करना थोड़ा कठिन होगा. On the other hand, for some of you it will be very different because you have that kind of experience and understanding. तो उसी के कुछ समय बाद लोगों ने कहा कि functions, memory की, attention की, perception, decision making, reasoning, all these are functions of human mind, human behavior. And why people are behaving in certain way? Because they are paying attention in that particular way, they are making decision on that particular way. आज के दिन मुझे ये इस कलर की शर्ट पहननी है, ये फंक्शन है. मुझे दूसरे रंग की शर्ट क्यों नहीं पहननी है, वो एक फंक्शन है. बट तभी उसी समय एक और रिसर्चर थे जिन्होंने कहा कि फंक्शन एंड स्ट्रक्चरलिज्म इज वेरी ब्रॉड कॉन्सेप्ट इन अंडरस्टैंडिंग बिहेवियर ऑफ ह्यूमन माइंड. हाउ वी बिहेव is entirely dependent on stimulus response. So SR theory came. अगर environment में शेर है, so we will respond. Response will be fight or flight. Either we will run away or we will fight. So behaviorism की जब वॉटसन ने बात की, जेबी वॉटसन was a very good researcher, उन्होंने ये कहा कि जब कोई बच्चा environment में आता है तो उसे ये नहीं पता होता उसकी माँ कौन है, कैसी है. The way he is having a stimulus, the way he is interacting with his mother again and again and again, then his response changes. The way the child is uncomfortable when he is wetting, when he is hungry, when he is experiencing too much light or too much darkness, he respond differently. So जब behaviorism की बात हो रही थी तभी then some school of thought were discussing about instinct. हमारा instinct क्या है? तो instinct is a very controversial topic. कारण क्या है कि as we grow we learn, as we learn our instinct goes away. जब कछुआ टर्टल जो होता है समुद्र के किनारे पैदा होता है, उसका बेसिक इंस्टिंक्ट ये होता है कि दैट यू हैव टू मूव टुवर्ड्स द ओशन बाय डिफॉल्ट. नोबडी टीचेस दैट, दैट इज इंस्टिंक्ट, दैट इज बेसिक इंस्टिंक्ट. जब गाय का बछड़ा होता है और पैदा होता है, बेसिक इंस्टिंक्ट इज स्टैंड अप ऑन द फुट, अदरवाइज यू विल नॉट गेट द मिल्क. तो वो खड़ा होता है, ये बेसिक इंस्टिंक्ट है. उसी तरीके से हमारा इंस्टिंक्ट जो होता है वो होता है क्राइंग, जब हम पैदा होते हैं. बट जब हम लर्न कर लेते हैं इस बिहेवियर को तो इंस्टिंक्ट चला जाता है। कुछ लोग ये कहेंगे कि क्राइंग तो हम अभी भी करते हैं, जब हम रोते हैं कुछ हमें नहीं मिलता तो शायद रोने पे मिल जाता हूँ, बट वो इंस्टिंक्ट नहीं है, वो इंस्टिंक्ट नहीं है, वो लर्न बिहेवियर है। हमने समझ लिया है कि अगर हम डिफरेंट डिफरेंट वे में इंटरैक्ट करेंगे लोगों से तो वी हैव टू बिहेव एंड रिएक्ट डिफरेंटली। तो स्टिमुलस रिस्पॉन्स की बात जब की उन्होंने तो मेनी ईयर्स, आई थिंक 30-40 ईयर्स पीपल वर जस्ट इन्वेस्टिगेटिंग दैट स्टिमुलस है रिस्पॉन्स है, स्टिमुलस है रिस्पॉन्स है। बट देन सम रिसर्चर्स started to talk about कि human behavior cannot be so simple, इतना सिंपल नहीं हो सकता। अगर इतना असाधारण है तो देन हम उन्हीं स्टिमुलस को आसपास रखें जो हमें खुश करें। फूल को रखें, माता पिता को रखें, बट माता पिता को हमेशा नहीं रख सकते अनफॉर्चुनेटली। स्लोली द डियर वंस डाई एंड व्हेन दे डाई then there is a response. The response is sadness. There is a big loss. How we overcome that? Because some people can overcome that, some people cannot. Those individuals who cannot overcome, then they have some mental health issues. Trauma होता है, anxiety होती है, depression हो जाता है. Some who can overcome still get hold on to beautiful memories. And from time to time, हम जो पुण्य तिथि करते हैं, then we remember those beautiful memories. That is the concept behind it. That we need a symbol. तो वो हम उसको पुण्यतिथि के रूप में देखते हैं। सो मॉडर्न स्कूल ऑफ थॉट ने कहा, दैट इज व्हाई मॉडर्न स्कूल ऑफ थॉट केम एंड दे स्टार्टेड टू टॉक अबाउट कॉग्निटिव एस्पेक्ट। व्हेन आई एम हैविंग अ बिग लॉस, देन हाउ शैल आई ओवरकम दिस। और माता पिता ऐसे हैं जिनसे हमें जीवन मिला, जिससे हमें बहुत सारी चीजें मिली, सब लोग अटैच होते हैं। तो एज अ सिंबल व्हाट वी डू, वी अर्लियर, पहले तो डिजिटाइजेशन का ज़माना नहीं था तो हमारे पास पिक्चर वगैरह हम लोग नहीं खींच सकते थे। देन पीपल वर कीपिंग सम फॉर रिमेम्बरेंस। पुण्यतिथि है तो एक उनकी चीज़ संभाल के रख दी और उसी की पूजा करते थे, जैसे कि वी हैव अ ब्यूटीफुल मेमोरी। दैट इज कॉग्निशन, that is you use your brain to think about those things. Socio cultural aspect की बात फिर मॉडर्न स्कूल ने करी कि you cannot live in one society and you are not living alone, you are not an independent body, you are living in a society, so you are a social animal. If you are a social animal, then you have to interact, social communication होना चाहिए, जानकारी होनी चाहिए। The better communicative you are, the better interaction you will have and you will have high social learning. फिर उसके बाद कुछ बातें हुई साइकोडायनेमिक की, साइको एनालिसिस की। लोगों ने कहा कि मुझे आपको मेरी हिस्ट्री नहीं पता। मेरी जब हिस्ट्री आपको नहीं पता तो बहुत सी चीजें हैं कि हमारे बट माई बिहेवियर इज रिफ्लेक्शन ऑफ समथिंग विच आई एम ऑलरेडी एक्सपीरियंस्ड। तो साइको एनालिसिस की बात जो थी वो बात उन्होंने की, फ्रॉइड ने की, सिगमंड फ्रॉइड ने की, उसके बाद कार्ल युंग ने की, बहुत से लोग आप जानते होंगे। उन लोगों ने ये कहा कि द बिहेवियर इज द रूट कॉज ऑफ अर्ली चाइल्डहुड ट्रॉमा और एक्सपीरियंस। अर्ली चाइल्डहुड मतलब 3 से 4 साल के समय में, 3 से 10 साल के समय में जो कुछ आपके साथ हुआ, आपको जो माहौल मिला, that is responsible in shaping your behavior and that is residing in your unconscious mind. उस वक्त जो चीजें आपको नहीं मिली तो उसकी जो फीलिंग थी that you never get things in life easy, that is driving your behavior and that is psychic energy, that is hidden energy, latent energy की बात की। कुछ लोगों ने कहा देयर इज नथिंग अबाउट ऑल दीज थिंग्स, ब्रेन है और अर्ली चाइल्डहुड है या समाज है, तो ऑल दीज थिंग्स डजंट मैटर, व्हाट मैटर्स इज एवोल्यूशन हैज हैपेंड। तो जब एवोल्यूशन हुआ तो ब्रेन हैज इवॉल्व्ड, नियोकॉर्टेक्स आया, सब कॉर्टेक्स आया, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दिस एवोल्यूशन, कांस्टेंट एवोल्यूशन इन द ब्रेन, जो न्यूरल वायरिंग हो रही है, बिकॉज ऑफ दिस ओनली ह्यूमन बिहेवियर इज कमिंग। नाउ बहुत से हम अगर अपने लिटरेचर की बात करें तो कहते हैं कि कलयुग में इंसान जो है उसकी बॉडी छोटी हो जाएगी और ब्रेन उसका बहुत बड़ा हो जाएगा। द रीजन बीइंग एवोल्यूशन हो रहा है, कांस्टेंट हो रहा है और न्यूरॉन्स इवॉल्व हो रही हैं। न्यूरॉन्स जैसे से इवॉल्व हो रही हैं, ब्रेन मास भी बढ़ेगा। Maybe today is not the time when we are using so much brain, but maybe 100 years from now, maybe most of our body energy will be consumed by brain. आज की डेट पे भी जब हम बॉडी में शुगर लेवल डाउन हो जाता है, then we cannot think properly, fatigueness होती है, because brain consumes lot of oxygen in thinking. So the practices like yoga enriches the brain with oxygen and remove deoxygenated blood from the system. As a result, what happened? It directly impacts the cognitive function. Memory enhancement होता है, attention बढ़ जाता है, perception बढ़ जाता है, and that is why such practices like yoga practices और hyperventilation practice जो deep breathing होती है, it helps in panic disorder, anxiety disorder and many other forms of mental health disorders. फिर कुछ लोगों ने कहा नहीं, all these things doesn't matter, it is all about whole. Whole is important than sum of its part, and that is gestalt. So gestalt की बात होती है, आप पार्ट्स को नहीं देख सकते. आप जब लेक्चर हॉल को देख रहे हैं तो केवल आप लेक्चर हॉल को नहीं देख रहे हैं, आप पूरे पार्ट्स में नहीं देख रहे हैं कि स्क्रीन एक है, कैमरा एक है, फूल एक है. आप कलेक्टिव देख रहे हैं एंड कलेक्टिव का परसेप्शन आप बना रहे हैं. फिर बात आती है बायोलॉजिकल की. बायोलॉजी में हम जब बात करते हैं तो हार्ट की बात करते हैं. हार्ट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट ऑर्गन. कहते हैं हार्ट एंड ब्रेन आर टू डिस्टिंक्ट बॉडीज. The interaction between the two is important, and that is why over the years different forms of meditation has emerged out, like heartfulness meditation is a method where this meditation is very distinct from normal meditation. They talk about that you can sit on your chair and then you can feel that there is a sensation moving from your toe to your brain, and when you can sense this sensation, then you can sense your heart, how much heart is beating, how much blood it is pumping out, and you can just get rid of most of the thoughts this way. Now heart is very important because जैसा मैं कहता अगर यहाँ पे शेर आ जाए, then we have to either fight or flight. Fight or flight situation की जब हम बात करें, both situation body requires energy. And how body is going to get energy? अगर हाथ में जरूरत है एनर्जी की या लेग में जरूरत है, तो heart is going to pump the blood. When heart is pumping the blood, then those parts of the body is getting energy which requires for fight or flight response. So breathing pattern change होता है, skin response change होता है, skin का temperature change होता है, and that is how these things are involved. So modern school of thought was talking about that. Now, but human brain is not that simple. Those perspectives have given us direction कि हम इस दिशा में आगे बढ़ के स्टडी करें ह्यूमन बिहेवियर की. बट लास्ट 100 years अगर देखें, so 9 disciplines of psychology has emerged out. तो एक होती काउंसलिंग. आप काउंसलिंग इज वेरी कॉमन मेथड और which has similarity with प्रवचन जो हम करते हैं, सुनते हैं, उसमें बहुत रिजेम्बलेंस है. बायोसाइकोलॉजी टॉक्स अबाउट द ह्यूमन बॉडी, physiology and all. Organizational psychology talks about the office setting, like here management. Yes. तो जैसे हम बैठते हैं, इंटरेक्शन करते हैं, बात क्या करें, you cannot talk about your personal stuff in organization. You talk about your professional stuff. क्या होना चाहिए. फिर cognitive aspect है, experimental aspect है, क्योंकि इसीलिए it is a science. So experiment की बात करते हैं. Small experiments we design. Small experiments when we design, then we also come up with control variables and experiments, and independent variables are there, dependent variables are there, and then we try to control more independent variables. और हम देखते हैं कि किसी एक stimuli का response how it is varying. Developmental psychology talks about how a child is developing and overcoming the challenges and situations. Educational psychology is talking about how psychology is playing a role in education. Why we all have different way to learn things. Some are visual learners, some are tactile learners, some are learning through words. Yes. So different forms of learners are there. तो जब हम tactile learner की बात करते हैं, the touch is important. So that is why, you know, when you are holding pencil and paper and you are writing, then only things are going in your brain. If you don't write and do, then it is very difficult for us to do. Some people are having a visual memory very strong, very robust. Whatever they see on a screen, they remember very fast. Then they don't need another perception about it. Some are auditory learners. They prefer on listening. They don't want to see anything. They don't want to hold anything. They just want to listen and then they absorb. So psychology try to address that. And then it is a form of learning social psychology. Social psychology talks about social interaction is there, social communication is there, why some individuals are social and why some individuals are not social. Now, this social psychology also talks about, addresses some issues, that why certain individuals are antisocial, why certain individuals are social. And this brings us to last, which is the clinical psychology. Clinical psychology talks about why a prisoner is a prisoner, what is wrong with his or her brain, why certain individuals have suicidal tendencies, why certain individuals are more prone to develop anxiety, others are not. And the fact is that we all are coming from different background, but sharing the same environment. But sharing the same environment, coming from different background, we will have different behavioral responses. Some of us are very satisfied with life, some of us are not very much satisfied with life. Why normal brain is how do we say that certain brains are normal brain, or certain mental processes are normal, and certain brains are not normal but they are abnormal? Why do we say that? So क्योंकि certain behavioral pattern we have registered over the years कि कोई अगर इस तरीके से behave करेगा तो वो normal है, कोई अगर उस तरीके से behave नहीं करेगा तो वो नॉर्मल नहीं है. जैसे कि अभी हम लोग बैठे हैं यहाँ पे, वी आर टॉकिंग, बट इफ आई स्टार्ट जंपिंग ऑन दिस टेबल एंड स्टार्ट रनिंग अराउंड, दैट विल बी अ वेरी एबनॉर्मल बिहेवियर. एंड व्हाई दिस बिहेवियर इज देयर, देन यू ऑल विल बी क्यूरियस व्हाई आई एम जंपिंग ऑन दिस बोर्ड. देन यू विल ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड कि व्हाट इज हिज हिस्ट्री, what is his background, why is he behaving in this way. Some of us will be very happy that at least have some entertainment. But the idea is that why these things are having and why brain is doing these things, that is something very important. Because according to World Economic Forum, by 2030, almost 1/4 of world's population will be suffering with some form of anxiety or related disorder. And that is why mental health is very important. People are suffering with diabetes, but that doesn't affect human behavior that much. People are suffering with hypertension, but that doesn't affect human behavior that much. But mental health problem can have severe effect over your body. When a person goes under depression, then he or she cannot live a normal life. And that is very stressful. We might have seen it, but we haven't experienced it. And I wish nobody should experience this also. Because this is a very hidden disease and we have to address this. So अगर हम psychology के methods की बात करें, तो methods में there are several methods which are present in front of us. We can see there are 5 basic methods here. One such method is systematic observation, which I was telling you about. Number of smiles person is giving, number of times person is sad, number of times person is jumping, number of times person is sitting, each and every interaction. So there is a systematic observation. This is a very broad domain. Within this systematic observation, there are many number of experimental methods are there. Then another method is the case study method. Case study method, we take one simple case and then we investigate. So the case which you can see the picture is very small. I thought I will not go so much in detail, but I can just, maybe you can look up in later that Finis gauge. Finis gauge is a very beautiful case study. The person was very normal, living a normal life. He was a miner. He was working in mining fields and digging. But one day what happened, while working in the mining field, you have to put an explosive and then due to explosion, the rocks break and then you remove those things, debris. So one day what happened, that there was a rod which was inserted in the, metal rod was inserted in the rock. And then when the explosion occurred, the rod entered into his brain and a portion of his brain was removed. He survived, he lived. but there were changes in behavior observed in him, and the behaviors were quite opposite. So he became erratic, he became anxious, he became, his marriage life got affected, and then he was very restless, which is in contrary before the accident. So then people started to understand that, okay, brain is also responsible, and if any portion over the period of years, we have built certain networks, certain brain networks we have developed. If any part of the brain is getting affected, then those part of the brain responsible for certain experience will also get affected. Like if you get hurt at the back of your skull, that is visual area, then you may have certain deficiency in seeing the thing. Then similarly, there is frontal cortex, which is responsible for decision making. So if you get any head bump here or any head injury, frontal cortex, then you may have difficulty in decision making and all those things. Similarly, some of the individuals who are schizophrenic, who hears some sound or who sees something. Now, people have different perception altogether, but I would say that these individuals have suicidal tendency. They hear sound and then they respond differently to the environment. The temporal area which is there is hyperactive. That because of that, they inside their head they hear sounds, different sounds, strange sounds, which doesn't guide them well, and as a result person is struggling a lot. So earlier the treatment methodology was just to give ECT, which is electroconvulsive shock therapy. You give large amount of current, 10 to 15 ampere of current, and then it short circuits your neuronal firing. As a result, what happens? It's a simple treatment. But the problem with such treatment is memory loss. Amnesia is a common problem. So previous slide, if you see, then there is the correlation method, and then correlation method is trying to do the comparison between the two variables. And then another method is the experimentation method, which we are seeing. Correlation method is a very good method. However, the problem with this method is that then you can correlate with anything. If certain individual have a tendency of fighting with people, then you can correlate with anything, that he is angry when he doesn't get food, he is angry when he doesn't get water, he is angry because he dislikes people, he is angry because he dislikes scores, he is angry because he dislikes the society. So correlation can happen at any time, but it doesn't provide you clear or doesn't clearly indicate the underlying cause of the human behavior. So as we proceed further, I would like to show you the differences between the different methods. The differences between the different methods are very important for us to understand, like systematic observation. And in this we know that behavior is observed through natural setting. How in natural setting person is behaving, like in this natural setting, how we are behaving, that is systematic observation. The moment you bring individual, or the moment I tell an individual that I am observing you, the behavior pattern will change. And that is not something which is important. If in order to see how an individual is responding in the environment, you don't have to tell the individual that this is there. So you just have to leave the individual as it is. But the problem with this is that if the person is in the environment, natural setting, then there are so many stimuli present in the environment that could affect his or her behavior. So direct cause and effect relationship is very, very difficult to establish. Case study method, where I was just telling you about Phoenix gauge, n number of case studies are there where you select one individual or you select few individuals, like 5 to 10 individuals. You put them together, like an experiment. When we do experiment and we are testing that how people are processing music and the effect of music on anxiety disorder. So one group we are having 10 to 11 individuals who are listening music when they are stressed, and one group individuals who are not listening music but they are doing some mathematical skill. 2 2s are 4, 4 2s are 8, or 8 2s are 16, simple mathematics. This kind of a small group we can investigate, and we can see the direct effect of music on the individuals. In another case also, we can select one individual and then we can study his or her entire lifespan from the time that you are interacting with an individual. But the problem with this kind of method is that we are investigating a small group of individuals or one individual, and then we try to generalize that this is how the behavior is, which is a big mistake with such method. And that is why it is not suggested to have case study method. Case study method could be investigated with one individual who is having some form of problem in a very close way. Then survey method is very common method we have investigated, and it is very common method. Small amount of time you can get large amount of data, but the problem with this is that, again, generalizability. You cannot generalize the finding. For example, जैसे हम ये कहें कि this kind of water, Bisleri, people are using, consuming more Bisleri water versus different water, tap water in Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand, we don't need filters basically. So I am drinking from the tap water. But when I am in my hometown, Prayagraj, then I have to drink water from the filter. So if we do a long survey study, I circulate how many people are drinking, tap water, how many people are drinking Bisleri water. In one day, I can do this survey with 10,000 sample. But then I cannot generalize this because Uttar Pradesh has different setting, Gujarat has different setting. I cannot generalize this methodology. Then correlation method, if we talk about, then correlation method is also talking about the large method. But the one big challenge with this is that n number of variable can be correlated. As I said, for instance, some of you might have seen the advertisement, Dhoni and eating chocolate. So when Dhoni is angry, then he's hungry, and when he's hungry, then he eats chocolate. So most of us, basically, if are angry, people say that he's hungry because of that. He's behaving in that way. My mother always say like that. Whenever I am hungry, she doesn't understand the root cause, that sometimes I'm stressed because of my journey, sometimes I'm stressed with my work. But whenever I'm angry, she tells to my wife that usko khana time pe diya karo 1 baje, then he's all right. Which is correlation. So she doesn't have to be a scientist. She's not a scientist, basically. She's not a psychologist. But she understands human behavior. So any one of us who observes behavior systematically can be a psychologist, basically. You don't need a degree for that. If my mother can establish that, then anybody can do that. Similarly, my father, whenever he is sitting behind me and I am driving the motorbike, though I am driving at 15, 20 kilometers per hour, he always say that I don't have driving sense at all. So he drives. When he drives, then I'm more scared, because the way he is handling, and along with his temperament also. So, but he has established this fact over the years, and I could see that the same reflection I'm also having, that, when my child will be growing up, maybe I will also have those behavioral traits. I cannot just rewrite or rewire those things unless I change my setting. So experimentation method, so difficulty is to establish the cause and effect relationship with correlation. N number of variables could be related, and we cannot establish why this behavior is directly there. Then experimentation is there, where we can directly establish the cause effect. But then the problem is that experimenter could be biased. I will be biased. If I'm doing any research, I'm saying that this drug is working in anxiety, then I'm biased. So I will be just trying to prove my fact. I will only include those group of individuals who will perform. If I say that yoga methodology is not working at all, then I can take n number of different yoga methodologies and I will implement with anxiety disorder. If I'm not from this domain and discipline, then if I have to prove it wrong, then it is mostly the experimenter biased, and that is why this method has a problem. The best way to address all these methods is that to do replication. Any study which we see, so yoga, if I'm trying to blend hyperventilation method, Kapalbhati and pranayam with anxiety disorder, then more replication is required. So anybody who is sitting in any corner of the world should be able to replicate this. And if this is replicating and if the findings are same, then it is okay. I am establishing it. But this is the approach through science. This is the approach to psychology. Some of us don't believe in establishing the fact. Like my father is a very religious person. He believes in Goddess Durga. He feels that there is certain amount of energy he gets when he prays. And the fact it is, he is having a very positive vibes. But I don't have to experiment that I bring him into the lab and I just scan his brain and I investigate that. Something which he's experiencing is coming through his psychic energy from inside his body, because body is capable to produce a certain amount of energy. And recently, if we talk about the underlying brain cause, then human body is having two brains. And you may have heard people are saying that this is my gut feeling. This is my gut feeling. So the gut is the organ which is residing not in the brain, but it is outside the brain. But it is the prime center. Recent studies are highlighting it is a prime center in generating neurons, neuroreceptors. And those neuroreceptors are then coming to brain. So basically, the first brain is our gut. And the second brain is the brain which we are using. So these kind of findings which we are coming up with are suggesting that the role and the interaction between mind and body. And entire body part is involved in human behavior. So the basic underlying cause could be three causes. One could be genetics, something which is embedded in my blood. So, you know, in ancient period, the blood is considered to be very sacred. And people believe that the mixing of blood, why they were not in favor of mixing of blood, means two races should not be blended. The reason being, when two bloods are being mashed together, then the high chances are there that two bloods may not establish connection, first. Second thing, all these bloods are having a smaller unit, which are DNA. These DNA are exchanging the units with each other. And every time when the two bloods are mixed together, then superior genes are selected. That is why the firstborn, पहला child जो होता है father mother का, that is having all superior genes from father and from mother. But the second child is always pay the price. So second child के पास इतने superior genes नहीं आते. And then always complain कि बड़े भाई को ज़्यादा प्यार मिलता है, छोटे भाई को नहीं मिलता. But the reason being, you will see that the father trait or mother trait जो core होते हैं, जो special होते हैं, वो first child में आते हैं because of genetic nature. Now, genetically, I have taken all genes from my father and all genes from my mother. My father consumes tobacco, but I never consume tobacco. But this doesn't mean that I don't have those genes of addiction. If environment will trigger, then I may start consuming tobacco. Similarly, any individual whose father or mother were consuming alcohol doesn't mean that he or she will be an alcoholic, unless and until he comes to that environment. So that is why we talk about the environment. Environment plays a major role. So one thing is the genes, another thing is the environment. And then the interaction between the two lead towards the normal and abnormal behavior. Now the third thing is that maybe the environment is very rich, genes are very rich, but when the child is growing up, he met with an accident, head bump ho jata hai bahut baar, you know, head injury. Then the neural circuit has gone. Certain part of the brain which is responsible for interaction, that is gone. Then the behavior will also change. So that is what earlier we were seeing about in the case study. So three causes are there when these three things are interacting with each other, and this is how the brain is playing role. And that is why environment is very important. Always try to be in a rich environment, and that is why it is being suggested that you should be very careful kis environment mein aap hain. Slowly that environment has an impact on you and you change. Many animal findings have suggested that those animals, rats, which are placed in poor environment, brain start to express those proteins. And when brain start to express those proteins, then the behavioral changes, and this has a deeper impact. And then the next generation, the child will be having those kind of brains. And that is why many times people say that how can we change these things? Okay, मेरे पास bad genes hai, I'm having alcoholic genes, I'm having bad environment because I'm working in a corporate world. So what should I do? Then the point comes, how can I change the neuronal firing? How can I change my brain circuitry? And in that cases, meditation is very helpful, because during meditation, those parts of the brain get activated which are not active during conscious state. So unconscious part of the brain get activated, and meditation is not an easy practice. Some of us feel that we just sit for 30 minutes or 1 hour and then we reach that state of consciousness. Meditation is basically, somewhere I was hearing a talk, and the psychologist, I do not remember his name, he mentioned that meditation is everything. Meditation is cooking, meditation is sleeping, meditation is walking, meditation is gardening, meditation is talking, meditation is writing. And you can do meditation in any way, in any form. And when you are involved and indulged and going so much deeper into that particular action, you will have a transcendental feeling altogether, and those parts of the brain get activated which may help you to overcome any sort of challenges. And this is something which is you all can think of and can practice, that what form of action which you like most: driving, talking, walking, cooking. And I feel that my mother or my father, that is why I feel that when my father is praying so much, then he may have activated some of those parts of the brain, and those parts of the brain are contributing so much energy to him that he so have different perspective altogether. Similarly, like my mother. The future of psychology, which we have to address, and this is my last slide to share with all of you, is that the future of psychology is in healthcare. And basically, the one wing which we are sitting here is the Patanjali. I think it has a strong role to play in coming years in psychology, because so many methods are there in healthcare towards mental health problem, but all those methods are not effective. N number of methods are there. Pharmacological method is there, neurostimulation method is there, cognitive method is there, behavioral exposure therapy method is there. But in all these methods, and even not only these methods, but interchanging and combining these two methods together also, researchers have failed to address mental health problem. Mental health issue can only be addressed with novel methodologies. And novel methodologies such as yoga, meditation, could be very, very effective, which we haven't explored last several decades. And now I think this is the time when we should explore these things in detail. Combining with modern technology, which means that if we can come up with scientific methods to showcase that doing meditation, doing yoga, there is changes in neural activation, then we may be very share this knowledge with the entire world. Then another place is the business. Majority of jobs in India are private jobs. And so many young individuals who are working in these jobs, they face a lot of challenges. A lot of bullying is there, a lot of stress is there. But how to help them so that they can cope up with this, psychology can help. And that is the new domain where, or not, I won't say organizational psychology, because organizational psychology is there in India from long time, but hasn't made much impact. Probably the different approach and different perspective is required in this domain. And finally, in the education. Why in the education? In education, because there are different forms of learning disability, there are different forms of math anxiety is there is dyscalculia. So different forms of learning disability we talk about. Most of us know about dyslexia. And I tell you that all of us who are sitting here may be having some form of learning disability. Learning disability doesn't mean only with writing. Learning disability doesn't mean only with reading. Learning disability doesn't mean only with comprehension, speech, hearing. But it could have many forms. We haven't undergone through some tests, so we cannot say this. But in education, the young children who are studying in a school, they are so much loaded with the studies that they are suffering with some form of dyslexia. And that is why in psychology, the field pedagogy, I think psychology has to play a major role in coming years. And that is why in earlier period, when we were having these Vidyapeeth, where we were sending children only for education and they were not having any interaction with the society, that has a huge impact, because children were not only understanding the knowledge so much, but they were also understanding the practical knowledge. And once they were coming back to the real world, then they were much more prepared. These days the children are not prepared. And the field of psychology which we also investigate, we understand that some young individuals are having math anxiety. They are so much anxious about multiplication, 2 cross 2. They are very much scared. And that is why learned helplessness and preparedness is a major topic in coming years in the field of psychology. Then one more thing is coming up, which I haven't brought here, but I would recommend you to look into, is the virtual reality system. Virtual reality system is a very novel system, and only in gaming people are using this virtual reality system. But in the field of psychology, virtual reality could be used and as a modern tool towards the intervention and also therapeutic prevention. So I will rest the talk here, and I'm open for questions and answers. If any questions and answers we have, please.
Yes.
Yes, sir, please.
As we study, there are the two major psychological theories, like behavior theory and cognitive theory. My question is that how do you apply this theory on this IIT IIM's creamy level students, because the students are from different streams as compared to other institutions, behavioral and cognitive theory.
Interesting question. I think this is basically, I will take liberty and I will just go to another level down, that is behavior and cognition, how these two are different basically. So behavior or psychology and cognition, how these two fields are different. Psychology is only talking about the behavior, how I am behaving, how my hands are moving. But cognition is talking about different level. Cognition is talking about the role of memory. Cognition is talking about the role of perception. Cognition is talking about decision making, how I am making a decision. Now, when I talk about the behavioral theories and cognitive theories application, then I basically first instance I would say that behavioral theories which we take to investigate are flooding method, exposure therapy, which is a very common method. Any child who is suffering from some sort of phobia, public speaking, then I would say that expose yourself to public speaking. How can they do that? Sit in front with a mic, small talk, just interact with your friends, and then interact with your classmates, then interact with your whole section, and slowly you interact one by one. This is an exposure therapy. More and more you flood yourself, more and more you expose yourself, you will then control this kind of behavior, and then you can overcome that. This is one part. Cognitive therapy, on the other hand, doesn't talk about that. Don't expose yourself. Just sit and just think about it. Why this talk is important for you? Why talking is important for you? For knowledge transfer, you have to interact with person. If you are not interacting, then it is not possible. And you are not the only one who is doing this thing. There are many individuals who are doing public speaking. Of course, everybody is scared. First time, everybody is scared. You do first time, second time, third time, and then this fear will dissipate. In both methodologies, the idea is that dissipation or dowsing or reduction of physiology. Reduction of physiology means that there is no threat available when I'm talking with all of you. But the person who is suffering from anxiety disorder, they are so much threatened, they are so much anxious that their heart pumps faster. And then they just want to run away. Nobody is biting them, nobody is getting. So these are the two different methodologies. Now, but applying both these methodologies, it may happen that individual may overcome and perform during that time. But when the next time will come, again he may have a trouble. So what we do basically, we do a repeated program. Behavioral method, if we are forming, then we do repeated program. And if we are doing cognitive method, then we do repeated program. Repetition of these program, why it is important, neuroscience can address that. In neuroscience, even like the fasting, if you do, like 9 दिन का नवरात्र होता है हमारा, first day of fasting is very difficult. Second day of fasting is less difficult. Third day of fasting is easy. Ninth day of fasting, we feel that I can do another 30 days like that. So it's basically you are, you're training yourself, you are exposing yourself, and neuronal firings then establish their network. Once that network is established, then there is no problem. Some literature talks about 40 days. So neuronal plasticity is 40 days. So if you want to change anyone's behavior, if you want to shaping is the right word in psychology. If you want to shape anyone's behavior, then 30 to 40 days of practice is required. 30 days of meditation can change the perspective altogether. I haven't done that. I don't do regular meditative practice or yoga practice. I know these things, but 30 days of continuation is something I know that if I have to practice, then 30 days of doing this thing, then it will become a habit. Like just brushing my teeth. Every day I brush my teeth. I don't need a phone call from my mother to brush. Or putting shoes, or washing my clothes, or putting shirt, or oiling my hair. So 30 days of practice can change because it can build the plasticity. Initial momentary, it is excitability. Right now our brain is at excited state, but it is not going to shape the brain like that. For plasticity, we have to do it for 30 to 40 days. Yes. Sir.
Namaste, sir.
Sir, God is the first brand. Could you God is the first brand. Could you clarify a little bit more?
God is the first
brand.
Man.
Gut is the first brand.
Gut is the first brand. Sorry.
Could you clarify a little bit more?
Yes. So I was following. There is a group of researchers in London, UK. They are doing a lot of research. What they observed is that the first form of thinking, when it is coming, when people are doing, same time when the brain is getting activated, gut is also getting activated. And certain inhibitors, they put it in the gut to block it. And what they noticed, when you block the gut, then the consciousness of the person is getting changed. Unconsciousness is getting changed. So for instance, I don't know if you know this about medicinal tea, ayahuasca. Anybody know ayahuasca? Ayahuasca is a medicinal tea. So this medicinal tea is in Brazil actually. Basically what they do, very beautiful thing. This tea, medicinal tea, requires 3 days of preparation and continuous preparation. So they take the root from some plant, and then they take the leaves, and then they burn. Almost 30,000 liters of waters are being used to burn this, to do this process. You just burn, and then from the extract, 30,000 of liter of water, when it is burned down, then the extract is limited only to, I think, 3 to 10 liters of ayahuasca tea is there. When you drink this tea has a procedure. You don't take just like that. During the full moon, it is suggested to take. When you take this tea, it blocks your gut. And when it blocks your gut, people get a lot of reflections in their mind. They move to a state of unconscious. They are conscious, but they move to another level between the state of conscious and unconscious. And what they have noticed is that they get different transcendental feeling. Many people start to feel regret. Many people start to feel sad about it. And of course, the scientific findings are not there because ayahuasca tea hasn't been explored scientifically. But it has addressed that the gut is playing a major role. Some neuroscience findings are suggesting that neurotransmitters such as serotonin, COMT, BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor, and number of neurotransmitters are there which are playing role in understanding, in learning, in memory, are actually getting secreted first from the gut, and then they are through bloodstream It is crossing the blood-brain barrier and entering into the brain. And that is why people are saying that this is very important. Another gland which is important is the pituitary gland, which is in the brain. Yes, and that is the third eye people talk about. And basically, early morning when 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning, scientific findings are there, by the way, that early morning when you are getting up and you are looking at the sun, this pituitary gland absorbs large amount of energy through your eyes, and it absorbs and it excites those parts of the brain which is not generally activated when we are not doing such practices. So gut has been a major role. I hope this addresses your question. Yes.
Sir, one more
Please,
is there.
please.
Yeah, sir, just now you stated about the virtual reality. Future will be of AI and robotics. In certain countries like Japan, China, they are still using this kind of particular technology. So will it not be a problem for us in the coming years, like if this virtual reality increases in psychology or a related process?
No, problem in a sense?
Yeah, basically
Using a technology.
yeah,
Um,
artificial intelligence and robotics. Virtual reality, you said no that it will impact psychology.
So, if I understand your
Yeah.
question, you are saying that using technology will have
Impact on us, means decreasing of jobs and several functions.
that. See, when we are talking the behavior per se, we are looking for a methodology towards mental health problem. For normal behavior, it is okay. The increase in screen time, this is also a screen time. Mobile is a screen time. When we are doing nothing, then we are just scrolling the videos and YouTubes and everything. We are scrolling all the time. That has impact on the brain immensely. Virtual reality, when I am talking about, that is why the virtual reality or augmented reality is very common in gaming. And gaming, children are getting addicted to that. And this addiction is a problem now. So how can we, again, see, this is a funny thing that the same virtual reality which is making individuals addictive, the same technology is being used to make them unaddicted. So our objective to use virtual reality or this augmented reality is not to introduce technology. Our objective is to use this technology combined with different methodologies to give those individuals that environment where they may feel comfortable, and then they execute the task. For instance, the new augmented reality system is the cave model. The cave model is just like a big room like this. So you can walk. So imagine if the cave system is there, anybody who is not practicing yoga or doesn't have the environment or doesn't want to practice yoga alone, their person can use virtual reality system to practice yoga along with 100 or 2000 people every day. The person who is having some problem with with a crowd, he doesn't want to have a crowd, only few people he want to meditate with, those individuals can do meditation with few avatars. Even further down the line, somebody who is sitting in America and we are having yoga session here, using augmented reality or virtual reality, that person can sense that I'm sitting in Patanjali and I'm doing yoga. So our objective with augmented reality or virtual reality is that how it can be used as a tool to treat people rather than to introduce another technology and make them more addictive towards the other method. Yes.
You mentioned about yoga. Because you are already lab there, probably. So my question is that in yoga, we want stability or satisfaction. I must say like that. The functioning of the neuropsychological, the stability phenomena are satisfaction. Many of you we are only serving seva bhav. That is our satisfaction, and other part is different. So the functioning of the you mentioned neurotransmitters. Functioning of the neurotransmitters as well as the functioning of the neurons, the wavy phenomena, the stability phenomena. So do you have some observations or do you have some experimentation for because there are two aspects. The alternate breathing and the effect of sound pressure level uh, the, the cardiovascular system and the neural network. So we have the 2 yoga modules, 2 or 3 yoga modules, for which experimentation or data collection is very much required, neurological phenomena. So do you have some lab? You have something in your
So
lab?
recently, I remember last year we submitted a project to DST with the yoga and this physiology. I haven't heard anything yet from them, but I am planning to submit to another funding agency. One of my friend is a yoga instructor. So he knows many yoga asanas. That is not my expertise. So I told him that you share. So he shared some yoga asanas with me. And the idea is that I identify those individuals who are having anxiety problem, and then I give them yoga. While they do the yoga, I connect some wireless devices, and then I collect the data. So this is already a planned study, but we haven't executed yet. But in near future, maybe I can. Yes, please, ma'am.
Sir, first of all, I want to convey my best regards
Thank
for
you.
your nice and valuable informations.
Thank you.
सर, काफ़ी समय से हमारे ज्ञान में उन्नति की जा रही है. कल स्वामी जी महाराज ने हमको बताया कि शास्त्र की स्मृति और अनुभूति करना शास्त्र है. सर, जब हम स्टडी मेथड्स की बात करते हैं तो आज हम इंट्रोस्पेक्टिव मेथड को बिल्कुल भूल चुके हैं. यदि हम स्वामी जी महाराज को फॉलो करते हैं, क्योंकि हम जिस संस्थान में काम कर रहे हैं वहाँ पर स्वामी जी महाराज का मानना है कि अनुभूति से प्राप्त किया ज्ञान प्रत्यक्ष ज्ञान होता है. तो क्या आप हमारे साथ कोलैबोरेट करके क्या हम एक्सपेरिमेंटल मेथड को बेस्ट मेथड क्रिएट नहीं डेवलप करा सकते? कि हम हमेशा यही क्यों कहते हैं कि एक्सपेरिमेंटल मेथड इज़ द बेस्ट मेथड, जबकि हमारे साहित्य में तो अंतर्दर्शन विधि ही सबसे प्रमुख विधि को होना चाहिए.
Wonderful question. Actually, I think in India we have paid so much attention towards scriptures and doing science in this method. I would not have done my degree from Germany. Basically, the thing is, ये जो शास्त्र हैं, I have an understanding that these mantras and ucharan excites the neurons to that level that they not only excite the neuron, but this excitation result into excitation of body, or ultimately our behavioral changes are there. Now introspection on the other hand is a very different method. Introspection of every action is very important. The words which I use today in interacting with you all, if I don't introspect, if I don't go back, then it doesn't mean anything. So the question which sir asked about the gut, the question the sir asked about behavioral method or CBT method, I may not have satisfied their answers. May not. Maybe I have satisfied. So next time it is a task that if these questions come up, then I address them properly. So that is introspection. And because all these things which I shared today, unfortunately, I only reference them to Western world, but now we are slowly starting to address these. And that is why bodies like this has a major role to play in coming years. Psychology has not reached that level. For instance, if I talk about NIMHANS, so to your question, sir, I think the NIMHANS has yoga center. Unfortunately, I have tried to contact them several times, but they don't are responding. But they have yoga center. I feel that NIMHANS should be 10 to 12 centers in India. Then only we can have 10 to 12 yoga centers. Otherwise, we will not have these places. Now, 1 or 2 research which we do doesn't make an impact. 1 or 2 research is not that much, but at least maybe it might guide some individuals. So I think introspection is very good method, and we have to investigate that also. Yes, we can do, and if we talk about lab experiments towards introspection, then that is also possible. That is also possible, and if you want, then I would be very happy to collaborate with you, Jinoj.
Sir, ma'am, one question I have.
Sure.
My question is very basic about psychology.
Please.
I just want to know what is the how much knowledge is enough for mind. I mean, too much knowledge about mind is making a problem, because 50 years ago we don't have too much knowledge about mind and its functions and behavior and all. Still we were happy. But today we see so much advancement in all the techniques and studies. Still people are being unhappy, and more advanced a country is, the more unhappy the people are. What is the reason behind it? Is talking too much about the mind is the problem?
I think the answer lies in, again, the Western psychologist, maybe ma'am knows, Abraham Maslow, motivation need hierarchy theory. So he talks about the basic model. 5 layers are there. Roti, kapda, makan. Then, then we go towards security. Then we go towards the social need.
Actually, my question was,
Yes.
what psychology
absolutely.
wants to know. Is there something still left?
It is, everything is left. We haven't scratched the surface, frankly speaking. 200 years.
The purpose of any knowledge should be to make the life beautiful and happy.
No. I think we are
we are
confusing. As a researcher, the purpose, science makes me happy. Research makes me happy. But research doesn't run my house. Salary runs the house. That is one thing.
Just getting the salary is the purpose of doing psychology.
Absolutely. That is the question which we have to understand. What makes us happy? If a person gets a job, very stable job, government job, then the happiness shifts. Happiness shifts towards the society. If I don't have a stable job, then happiness shifts towards the stability of the job and towards the EMI, towards the car loan, towards the house loan, towards the salary. Now, the question is the knowledge. When should we stop? We should not stop. The reason being, brain is never stopped. Even when you are sleeping, brain is not stopped. The day we take first breath, we come out from mother's womb, brain is active. The day we die, brain is active. Our objective should be, rather than we indulge ourselves that now I have attained enough knowledge, that point should not reach. Because there is not enough knowledge. Even 30 to 40 years of research, several researchers have mentioned that they haven't understood that discipline properly. I give you one example. There is a very known researcher, Joseph Ledoux. He is in New York University. He worked 30 years in the field of fear. His teacher was Gazzaniga, who gave the split brain concept, well-known neuroscientist. After 30 years of research, he mentioned one point, that throughout 30 years of research, he used one word, threat response, fear response. And then he wrote a paper in 2019. He mentioned that he was so wrong that he said fear response. Fear response is such a wrong word because there is threat-based fear response, which means threat response towards this and threat towards this and threat towards this. All are different. And that is why it's threat-based response. So I think knowledge, you cannot decide that now I should stop. The knowledge is something what you seek. Knowledge is everything. Even the food which you crave, the taste you seek, that itself is a knowledge. And that you pass on to your child or to your fellow colleagues also. So we cannot decide that thing, basically. But motivation can be other factor. And that is why only few people reach to the self-actualization state, as Abraham Maslow mentioned. Few people like maybe Swamiji might have reached that level of self-actualization, like Mahatma Gandhi reached, and few people have reached. But I feel that I am still at the age of level of social need, where I look for social interaction, communication. And once I cross this, then I will cross the esteem need, ego. Once I cross that ego state, then I enter into the state of...
Actually, my notion was about just to go beyond the mind or just keep talking about the mind is the difference.
Now the time is to go beyond the mind and amalgamate
because
the
in
body.
Yoga they say yada panchavatishtante jnanani manasasa. So
Yes.
mind and senses are calm, and you go beyond them.
Absolutely. And that is what we have
And when
to
you
do
keep
now.
talking about mind,
Uh-huh.
it is itself a problem, in my opinion.
You are, no, you are absolutely right. And that is why today we have to study mind and body together. And same time, we have to also understand when body is not there, then what mind is doing. What is the state of that? Please.
I'm very thankful to our Pro Vice Chancellor, sir, who has called upon this Dr. Manish Asthana ji, and he has given a very good lecture. And in fact, he has opened up the mind. And because we were talking about psychology, he has really done that job in a nice way. And all are really involved. But first, I would like to react on that, Sanjay ji. I think when Atma goes back after the death, what all it is involved in, क्या लपेटा रखती है, उस पे आप ध्यान दीजिए, क्या ब्रेन उसमें, माइंड उसके साथ कितना जाता है, क्या नहीं, वो देखिए. वो भी एक रिसर्च का टॉपिक है और आगे हम उसको लेके आगे जा सकते हैं. That itself can answer you, like उसमें उस टाइप में भी रिसर्च आप जा सकती है. My question is, सर आपने कहा था कि साइकोलॉजी स्टार्ट्स राइट फ्रॉम द बर्थ. यदि मैं कहूँ, यू जस्ट करेक्ट मी, मेरा अपना मतलब दिमाग में आया आपने जब बोला, इज इट योगा प्लस जीन्स प्लस स्टेटस, डाइटरी स्टेटस ऑफ द पेरेंट्स प्लस एनवायरनमेंट, एंड दैट स्टार्ट्स प्लेइंग अ रोल राइट बिफोर द कंसेप्शन मोमेंट, इवन बिफोर दैट. Is it prarabdha? Is it psychology or the mind, the rule?
If I understand ma'am's correction, before the seed is planted, I think this is very true. For instance, if we talk about any seed, like mango tree, the seed itself is having genes, but if the seed is planted in different soils, it will have impact on the fruit. Tree may grow up, leaves will be there, but basic requirement like sun, air, water, that is there. So something which we are getting from the mother's womb, several literature is there, but not scientific, but from ancient, like Arjun.
Can we say our Shastra as a science?
It is. We can.
Then that is science.
And absolutely, that is what the point is, that if somehow we can do a study where reciting certain shlokas in a controlled environment, and that very moment we can record the brain signals, and we could find that, okay, there is a change in the neuronal firing repeatedly for long period of time, then that is something which we can say that, of course, it's a science. And science is nothing but it's a, the theories and organized observations. And so I think people, we may be doing research 1,000 years back, and that's why we documented so many things. But now I think this time we should revisit all those things, and if we can bring it forward, that is important.
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन सिर्फ इसलिए था कि सीड इटसेल्फ हम प्रारब्ध में बिलीव करते हैं
जी.
उसने कितनी जनरेशन, कितनी हम कहते हैं 84,000 योनियां, वटेवर इतना सारा किया और वो सब सिमट कर जाता है. प्रारब्ध तो है, तो साइकोलॉजी तो पता नहीं कहाँ से शुरू हो गई है.
आप
मेरा क्वेश्चन,
you can see like this. When I was listening some I listen philosophers. One philosopher whom I listen is Jiddu Krishnamurti. His philosophy of life is very different. He said that two thoughts when come together, then there is a thought. So I think this is before the seed. So when two thoughts are there, when parents expect that, okay, child should be there, then a child is there. Now I can share one beautiful incident with you. Recently, last month, I got baby girl. So my wife, she was thinking about a girl. And I said that, okay, you can have any child. But she was so much thinking about a girl, and we got chance. We were very happy. So I could say that the thoughts, how we align those thoughts, those matters, and also how well and clean thoughts are also. So that is exactly, but these could be potential research questions, I think. Yeah, thank you.
Sir, while you talk, you used 3 words. One is stress, depression, and schizophrenia. So can you differentiate between them?
Anxiety, depression, and schizophrenia.
Yeah.
So anxiety and depression. See, depression is a mental state when a person is sad for too long. See, reaching the deadline, presentation deadline is normal. People can be anxious. People can be sad with the presentation. But if you are too long with sadness, more than 6 months, then it's clinically depressed individual. If anxiety is there, short lasting anxiety could be there, that I have to present a talk, hundreds of people are asking me question, how I have to answer, I will be anxious, my heart will be pacing up. But if this anxiety is long lasting, more than 6 months, then it is clinical anxiety. Schizophrenia, on the other hand, is a combination of neural damage or impairment in neural damage is there. Mostly people have observed and noticed that if a mother is having a substance abuse, or mother is having a bad environment, or alcoholic in first 3 period of her pregnancy, so that result into schizophrenia. Now the child can be hallucinated, or a person can be hallucinated, which means that person can have visual hallucination, can see a person, or have auditory hallucination, can hear a person. And many times these individuals can have high tendency or suicidal tendency. So they may harm the individuals also. So it's a clinical symptom. Depression and anxiety may not harm an individual, but schizophrenia is a little much more. In India, we haven't reported much, but yes, I think Nimhans has come up with his consensus 2015-16 report that it is also increasing with an alarming state. But this data is only from 12 states. You can get it from internet.
Answer to this schizophrenia.
Answer for schizophrenia. I think neurostimulation is something which I was thinking of, because individual who is hallucinated, the brain region which is involved in that is the temporal area. So I was thinking that if I stimulate the brain, these brain regions, then I may hypoactivate, suppress the activity in these brain regions. If I suppress the activity in these brain regions, then I may be able to achieve, then they can. The important thing we have to understand when we talk about brain, the brain can be hyperactivated or hypoactivated. So hyperactivation, when it is there, that is why yoga and meditation calms your brain. In anxiety, the brain is very excited. In depression, the brain is very, very low activity state. So you have to do activities which can activate the neurons which are resting. So both shares the similar mechanism. That's what research say. Anxiety and depression shares the similar mechanism, similar neural path. But in one, there is hyperactivation. In another, there is hypoactivation.